I made a 6-part series about what you might call mature lesbians, middle-aged lesbians, older lesbians, elder lesbians, women who are not necessarily the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed teens or 20-year-olds that sometimes feel like are the majority of woman love woman representation out there. Today, I have put all the parts together so you don't have to go scrounging around my channel to unearth them all, so get a pen and paper ready as I have got 116 film and TV options with mature sapphic ladies in them. T11 Incomplete is a surprisingly good, low-budget indie film that follows Kate, an ex-alcoholic who is trying to get her life back together. As she tries to patch her relationship with her family, while trying to live a quiet life, she begins to work as a physical aid for a young paraplegic woman, Laura. Feelings develop and it becomes physical, but she is struggling financially and it leads to her betraying Laura. It might not be a big romantic movie, but one that threw a very human lens on Kate's struggle to find her way later in life, the quiet desperation of trying to make ends meet, and both women's need for connection. Both as a film with a mature sapphic lady and a film with a sapphic with disability, I thought the movie did a good job, and best of all, it can be found for free here on YouTube or on Tubi, so you don't have to look too far if you want to check it out. Link in the description. Another film with an older sapphic is the film Grandma, where we get to see Lily Tomlin taking up the sapphic mantle. When her granddaughter Sage turns up in need of some help with an unwanted pregnancy, Elle goes about gathering up the money for a termination because she doesn't have the cash on hand. As they go from place to place, calling in debts and selling off items, they re-establish their relationship, and it forces Elle to face her estranged daughter. It's witty and smart, and with Lily Tomlin as the grandma, you know she's going to be a character, one that doesn't feel too far off from Frankie in the show Grace and Frankie. The difference here is that Elle is gay, where Frankie, well, that is debatable. The movie is not particularly gay apart from that one fact. I watched it a long time ago, but I do remember enjoying it. Another I watched many moons ago is Cloudburst, about two older women, Stella and Dot, who escape from their nursing home and head to Canada so they can get married, because back in 2011 it wasn't legal yet. It's a light-hearted and yet poignant film that looks at aging and of being two women who aren't allowed to officialize a relationship that has spanned decades. On their road trip, they pick up a hitchhiker and get to taste the freedom of their youth again as they go on this one last hurrah. Yes, you may well want to read between the lines on that one. That said, there is a beautiful warm love between the two women and their banter is delightful, and it's peppered with some joyful comedy. Another film whose ending is, well, let's just say not happy, is A Million Happy Nows, ironically. I've mentioned this one before, and it looks at a couple who are dealing with an early onset Alzheimer's diagnosis. They decide that given a limited amount of time before the disease swallows Lainey up, that they want to experience as many happy nows as they can. This script was written by a Natalia fan, especially for them, to showcase their chemistry, and as a fan, I certainly enjoyed that part. While I would have liked a happier ending, the writer, Marissa Kalin, was writing from experience, and therefore there is an emotional resonance at how one even goes about dealing with such a reality. This film is also available on YouTube for free. The channel Gravitas Ventures has it up, link in the description. Another of dubious ending is A Perfect Ending, again, ironically, where an older woman who, unhappy in her marriage and wanting something more, decides to meet Paris, a woman from an escort company, but she isn't expecting the encounter to upend her so entirely. Through a series of encounters, the two women grow close, but Rebecca has a secret she hasn't told anyone. This one is just a little steamy. It's not one I particularly like, and not just because of the ending, but I know many of you have commented about how you've loved it on past videos. I personally enjoyed Ammonite infinitely more. It also has some rather steamy moments. It is a fictionalized account of Mary Anning, a fossil hunter from the 1840s who contributed greatly to the excavation of fossils during her life. In the movie, she begins an intense affair with the grieving Charlotte, who is sent to convalesce on the rugged English coast following a miscarriage. This film is very much in the genre of lesbian period pieces, and as a consequence was largely dismissed by audiences, at least I found. But I thought it was a masterful movie, and with two big stars like Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan, the material was in good hands. While Mary Anning was never officially called a sapphic, her rather passionate letters to other women and lack of a heterosexual love interest made it but a small hop to thinking she was queer. Now, this one, The Duke of Burgundy, was a rather strange film, and like A Perfect Ending, not my fave, but it does feature a more mature sapphic lady, and look, You may absolutely love it. It has a particular European slice of life vibe combined with elements of surrealism and a touch of some kind of S&M power play, although maybe it ends up being more about one of the women wanting to control a sexual fantasy at the expense of the other, and so it is a film that made me feel uncomfortable with the dynamic. Let's just say it's not a love story in that sense, but hey, what is not for me may be for another, and you might just love it. Let me know in the comments if you do. This next one I haven't seen yet, although I do want to. It may have to wait for a day when I'm okay with a bit of hard, cold reality, because it follows two neighbours who have been in a secret lesbian love affair for 20 years. Madeleine doesn't want to tell her grown children, and as a consequence, when she has a stroke, her partner, Nina, is left standing on the edges as she is assumed to be just a neighbour. It looks like the truth comes out, and through it, causes quite the upheaval. Now, before I go on, I wanted to mention that I made this list using my very own sapphic film and TV database that I am building out on my Patreon. There you can filter content based on age range, as I did here, how gay I think a piece of content is, what country it's from, and so many other factors. Then, if it's a movie I've already reviewed, you can just click on a button and it'll take you right to my video review, so you can decide if you want to watch it or not. So, if you like the sound of that and getting other perks like exclusive content, hop on over. The following I have mentioned some many times before in other videos, so let me cover them briefly. The Kids Are All Right, which was nominated for an Oscar, is about two lesbian mums who come into contact with their sperm donor now that their kids are teens and wanting to connect with him. It might have Annette Bening, who'll pop up a bit later on the list, and Julianne Moore, who has played a sapphic before too, but big minus points for the fact that one of them sleeps with the sperm donor. Sorry for that spoiler. True Love, a story of a 30-ish womanizer called True who starts a romance with the mother of a friend, Alice, and finds herself falling hard for her. But Alice has a secret. Ratched follows Nurse Ratched of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who seeks to help her brother locked up in an insane asylum, and in the process meets and falls for a local reporter. Apparently season 2 was supposed to go ahead, and it's been almost 4 years now. So, who knows? Shortland Street, the Kiwi soap, had the mother of the resident bisexual Nicole, called Leanne, falling in love with Nicole's wife's mother, Rosalyn. So gay. It fizzled out in the end, but it was fun while it lasted. A Secret Love is a Netflix documentary that looks at the love of two women who met while playing professional baseball during the 1940s and lived secretly together. In the present day, they come out to their families as they decide to move into assisted care, and they recount their fascinating and varied lives hidden in the shadows. I feel like I've mentioned Deadloch so many times. Go check out my review if you want to know more, but it featured a middle-aged sergeant and her wife in a sleepy lesbian town with many murders happening. I also reviewed The Morning Show recently, and Bradley and Laura have been navigating their relationship among the challenging politics of a news network. Orphan Black Echoes got a review on my Patreon recently where we get to see a mature Kira Manning being all sapphic with her wife, well, from about episode 5 onwards. Tar had Lydia Tar also with a wife and a kid, but the movie is much more about her position as a conductor. In And Just Like That, Miranda is exploring her sexuality with Shay. In Demente, the Chilean telenovela, Flavia escapes an abusive relationship when she meets the cop Javera. I talked about If These Walls Could Talk Too just the other week, and in the first segment we get to see the heartbreak of losing a partner in a time when the surviving one has no rights. So not exactly a joyous story. Les Amours D'Anaïs made it onto my top 10 content for 2023, and Anaïs falls for an older woman. The L Word and the L Word Gen Q have sapphics of all ages. The L Word Gen Q in particular, as Bet, Tina, Shane and Alice are 20 years older and hitting their 50s. And finally, Nyad, an absolute tour de force biopic that blew my socks off, showing a 60-ish-year-old Diana Nyad who swam from Cuba to the Florida Keys. Starting with Last Tango in Halifax, this delightful English dramedy follows Celia and Alan, who reunite after 50 years only to discover that their feelings as youths are still there. They love each other and they want to marry, and this news throws both their families into chaos. Celia's daughter, Caroline, played by the wonderful Sarah Lancashire, is going through a separation and dealing with her newfound sapphism. For the first couple of seasons, she is in a relationship with Kate, played by Nina Sosanya, a familiar face who you may remember from Killing Eve. I was fully invested in this show and especially enjoyed the exploration of a mature, powerful woman coming into her own sexuality. But then the unfortunate bury your gays trope reared its head and I was bitterly disappointed by it, so much so I didn't finish the show. Still, what I saw of it, minus the bury your gays, was great, and it was created by none other than Sally Wainwright, who is responsible for Gentleman Jack, along with some others you may know like Scott and Bailey and Happy Valley. Her latest work, Renegade Now, according to the Tumblr gift sets on my dash, has some sapphic activity in it for the lead. Keeping it English, EastEnders has a sapphic storyline that is still in progress between the characters of Eve and Suki. As it's a soap, you know it's going to be a slow burn enemies to lovers. Although I haven't seen it, I did take a quick look at some edits and that's exactly what it appears to be. When Suki has a dispute with another East Ender resident that she's trying to evict, Eve is brought on as a solicitor. From there, an antagonistic relationship develops as they cross paths again and again, but hiding behind that animosity, it seems that Eve is developing feelings and it seems that Suki might be too. Only she has a hard time reconciling it, especially as it's not the first time she's had feelings for a woman and she didn't handle it well at all. She has some internalized homophobia to deal with. Over time, things thaw between them and they progress, as all good soap love stories do, with setbacks and spurts forwards. But eventually, they find themselves in each other's arms, and from what I gather, it's a bit of a revelation for the typically spiky, angry Suki, who, through the relationship, learns to accept and love herself. Pretty big stuff. Eve is played by Heather Peace, a sapphic lady who appeared in Lip Service, a show I mentioned in a recent video, which is a total bonus, and I hope that these ladies get a good ending. The pairing of Bernie and Serena on the show Holby City is another delightful sapphic story between mature lesbians who find themselves growing close when Bernie, a trauma surgeon, was brought in to help oversee some things in the hospital, including Serena, who does not take kindly to it. The start of their relationship is understandably somewhat frosty, but as they continue to work together they begin to find a simpatico which then turns to an attraction. For Bernie this is not a revelation as she has been attracted to women before, but for Serena it is. However, the feelings on both sides are genuine and a deep love develops. There is drama in there, of course, to keep the relationship on its toes. The storyline starts in season 18 of the show with their final appearance in season 23. The characters leave and come back on the show a few times, with them ultimately leaving as a committed couple. This was probably due to some fan backlash when, in 2019, they appeared to bury a gay while Bernie was off screen for no good reason. Then they retconned that to give the ladies a happy ending. The actresses are wonderful in their roles and bring a wonderful warmth to the characters, which makes this pairing a good watch despite the controversy around some writing decisions. The actress who played Serena, Catherine Russell, has played gay before in a BBC miniseries called The Cazalets, which was adapted from a book where she played Rachel, the spinster of a privileged upper-middle-class family in England that we follow over the period of World War II. We learn that she is in love with Sid, a music teacher from London, although their relationship has not been consummated despite strong feelings on both sides. When Rachel gives Sid the invitation to come to her bed, it appears she is subsequently racked with guilt about giving over to her desire, and in the miniseries that is more or less where it is left. I have read the sapphic storyline had more depth in the book and also a more satisfactory ending, but it does feature a mature sapphic lady in Sid and thus secures a place on this list. The entire miniseries can be found on YouTube, or you can just watch Rachel and Sid's storyline. I have linked you to a playlist in the description. Stella Blómkvist is an Icelandic crime drama where Stella, a young, smart lawyer, is defending a man who is the main suspect for the murder of the Prime Minister's advisor. The key to his defense appears to reside in a mysterious blue bag that she is tipped off about anonymously. She manages to trace that anonymous tip to the Minister of Internal Affairs, a woman called Dagbust. And across a series of encounters, Stella develops a more personal interest in Dagbust, and when she dangles the possibility of a liaison as a bargaining chip, it appears that Dagbust is most certainly interested. I've only seen an edit of this relationship linked in the description, so I'm not sure what else happens outside of the sapphic storyline, but it looks like it is a solid series with a good dose of politics, corruption, and flexible morals, and of course, a mature sapphic lady as a love interest. For a different pace, Ich Will Dich is a German made-for-TV film that follows the story of a woman, Marie, who works as an architect with her husband. Her head is turned by the fiancé of an ex-turned-friend, the free-spirited and coquettish Isla. When Isla finds herself staying at Marie's place, feelings begin to emerge, and while Isla is open to it, Marie is more conflicted, not just because she has a husband and children, but because she is struggling with what her attraction means. Things are further complicated by the fact that Isla intends to marry her fiancé, but also wants something with Marie. I watched this movie a long time ago and remember thinking it was a solid and touching film, one that ends well, complete with a last-minute dash to the airport, although a rom-com, it is not. It's definitely in the drama territory. I've also found a copy of the film on Dailymotion, which I've linked for you in the description, although you will need to flex your German skills, as it doesn't have any English subtitles. In 1995, a surprise cult hit came out in French cinema called Garçon Maudit, also known as French Twist in English. It's about a housewife, Loli, who, upon finding out her husband has been cheating on her, is quite happy to be seduced by the lesbian plumber Marie-Jo, who she invites to move in with them. So begins a little ménage à trois, much to the husband's chagrin. When an opportunity presents itself to get rid of Marie-Jo, the husband takes it, but it's not that easy. It seems that this experience has woken something up in Loli, and perhaps there are some more genuine feelings than just revenge on a philandering husband. From the single review I read, since I have not seen it yet, it sounds like this comedy did well with audiences despite the taboo subject back in 1995 as a result of a clever script. The actress playing Marie-Jo is also the writer, which saw her win a César for the script and a nomination for a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film in 1996. The next few are shows that I've mentioned before on my channel, so let me cover them only briefly here. Station 19, where Maya and Karina meet in Season 3, which leads to marriage and to, as we speak, them starting a family. I've really enjoyed their storyline and think it has been, for the most part, really well done. Gentleman Jack, where we follow real-life Anne Lister and how she met and married her love Anne Walker. Vigil, which also stars Saran Jones as a detective in this crime mystery drama as she investigates a case each season. It also prominently features her love affair with fellow detective Kristen Longacre. Harlan Coben's Shelter had two sapphic threads in the show, one of which featured some mature sapphic ladies. When Shira and Hannah, two high school best friends, reconnect and discover their feelings for each other, are still very much present. It did get cancelled after one season though. How I Forgot Carol on my original list is a mystery, so here I am correcting that oversight, because how could I forget Kate Blanchett's turn as Carol in this sapphic classic? Wentworth also has some mature rep, and quite a bit of it now that I think about it. From Bea to The Freak to Bridget, there are a few mature ladies to pick from here, and that is me having only watched the first 5 seasons. From memory, it's about season 3 that things get more overtly sapphic. And finally, I have Emmerdale, who, back in 2017, had 2 long-term characters, Vanessa and Charity, start a no-strings-attached romp that ended with them falling in love. Things went pear-shaped for the couple when the actress playing Vanessa went on maternity leave twice over the last few years, but she's recently back, and look, perhaps the writers will eventually get them back together, or am I just kidding myself? The storyline we did get, however, I found very enjoyable, and I've linked a channel dedicated to the pairing. Starting with a single-season series of First Lady, we got to see Gillian Anderson playing Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the First Lady between 1933 and 1945, while her husband, Franklin D. Roosevelt, was President of the US. She also happened to be a sapphic and was known to have a relationship with a woman called Lorena Hickok, who apparently fell madly in love with Eleanor. The show takes this story and explores it in further detail. The show also looks into the lives of First Ladies Betty Ford, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and Michelle Obama with Viola Davis. I haven't seen it, and it's gotten mixed reviews, but a mature sapphic lady it sure does have. 10%, also known as Call My Agent, is a French TV series about the agents at a talent agency and all the behind-the-scenes high-octane dealings that go on, dealing with a talent who can sometimes be a little, shall we say, unique, and the sometimes not-so-subtle competition between agents as they try to land the talent that will make them and the agency rich with that 10% commission. With the knowledge that Camille Cotin was playing the sapphic lady agent Andrea, you may recognize her from her appearance in the final season of Killing Eve, also playing a sapphic lady. I was excited about the show, and I thought overall it was solid. It's dynamic, with some enjoyable comedic moments and some layered storytelling, in addition to featuring some mature woman-love-woman characters. But I was also pretty let down by my second most hated lesbian trope, lesbian sleeping with man, then woman getting pregnant from sleeping with man. It was just so utterly disappointing, and it was happening a little after the infamous 2016 massacre of lesbian characters, so I just felt like we couldn't get a break. I stopped watching after that. But hey, it does have a mature sapphic lady as one of the leads, so. Freehold is based on a true story of lesbian Laurel Hester, who fought for her partner to receive her police pension after she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Right off the bat, you know how this one is going to end, but it doesn't stop it from being a well-made film that I was surprised I enjoyed as much as I did. I certainly appreciated how it looks at the work that so many people in the LGBTQ+ community have done so that we can today benefit from such simple things as equal rights. It also boasts some star power with Julianne Moore, who played gay before in The Kids Are All Right, which made it into part 1 of the series, and Elliot Page, of course, before his transition. And they both give affecting and beautiful performances. Another film Julianne Moore starred in as a sapphic lady is The Hours, a 2002 movie which tells 3 stories loosely connected through the novel Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. We follow Virginia Woolf, a suburban housewife in the 1950s, and a woman preparing for a party in the then modern day. All have an element of sapphism in them. Along with Julianne Moore, there is Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep to make this a star-studded cast. There certainly is a good dose of melancholy running through the film. Given the age of the film, you can probably guess it's not exactly a joyful, happy depiction of woman-loving women, but I do remember being affected by this film and thinking it was well made. And one thing it does have is mature sapphic ladies. Concussion is a 2013 movie about a sapphic woman whose relationship with her partner has become stale and she's yearning for something more than her role as a mother. When she gets a mild concussion, it leads her to seek out an escort to sleep with, and the encounter is so profound she decides to become one herself under a pseudonym. Through experiences she has sleeping with other women, she is going through an awakening. But how long can she keep the secret of her double life? I haven't seen it, but it sounds like it's pretty gay with plenty of lesbian sexy time. Let me know in the comments if it's worth checking out. For something that is upbeat and does have a happy ending, there is Late Bloomers, a 1996 indie film that looks at what happens when 2 women fall in love in the Bible Belt. Carly, the secretary to the local high school principal, is in a marriage that has long since died, and Dinah, a maths teacher, has never been in love. When they connect over a misunderstanding, a friendship grows that turns to love. While it feels natural to them, the rest of the community has a tougher time accepting it, which causes a rift with Carly's daughter, endangers their jobs, and makes them question what they are doing. But love will win out. Because of it being a dramedy, the narrative, while dealing with the consequences of being lesbians in a small conservative town, doesn't get too heavy with its narrative, allowing for the space for a light-hearted, feel-good film. While it bears the markings of a low budget and storytelling that doesn't always feel even, it is a sweet and positive love story that had me smiling at the end. I watched the movie over on Tubi Canada, and it may also be available in other countries' Tubi services. Although if Tubi is not available to you, as I have mentioned before, your best friend is a VPN. I know it's a bit odd, but I do have a link for both Surfshark and Nord VPN in the description. I've tried both of them out and found Surfshark to be a tad cheaper, but sometimes a bit slower, and Nord VPN is a bit more expensive, but it doesn't slow the internet connection as much, or at least for me. So that's what I use now. I don't pay for a lot of services, but to me, a VPN is an indispensable part of roving the internet, whether on your mobile phone or on your laptop, so I highly recommend it. La Tourneuse de Page, a 2006 thriller, follows Mélanie, a girl who, some years before, as a young girl, fudged an important piano audition due to one of the adjudicators, Ariane. Growing up, she decides to take revenge on Ariane by infiltrating her life and becoming indispensable as a page-turner during Ariane's piano performances. There appears to be an attraction, but is this part of the revenge or something more? This is a movie I haven't seen, but I have been told on good authority by one of you, my dear viewers, that it's an excellent film, and certainly from the clips I saw, it looks intriguing. How sapphic it actually is, I don't know. There is a lot of intense gazing happening, and at least on Ariane's part, vulnerable after a car accident, she seems to be genuinely seduced by Mélanie. Watching the trailer, I have to say there seems to be something of an uncanny resemblance to the 2021 film Deadly Illusions, which has a young woman coming to take care of an author's kids while she works on a manuscript. There equally seems to be a seduction of the older woman who, given how deeply her novel writing affects her, is also in a vulnerable state of mind that this young ingenue is taking advantage of. From the little digging I did, it seems this movie is of much lower quality, likened to Lifetime, and not in a good way. So I don't know that it's something to be recommended, which is a shame because I do like the idea of Kristen Davis of Sex and the City fame playing gay. Let me now cover the following briefly as I have covered them many times before. The pairing of Otalia from the cancelled soap Guiding Light has the resident bad girl Olivia falling for the wife of the man whose heart beats in her chest. Love, love, love this pairing, one of my first sapphic OTPs, and I have the link to their storyline in the description. Happy ending, it does have, but it was the 2000s, so physical affection was censored. Still, I love it, totally recommend. After Guiding Light finished, Crystal Chappelle and her co-star Jessica Lucia went on to star together a few times as lovers, most notably in Venice the series, where censorship was not an issue. Season 7 is in pre-production and is crowdfunding right now in case you would like to contribute. If you're curious, the first season, maybe 2, is available for free on YouTube. I have a link for you in the description. For more soapy goodness with mature sapphic ladies, Acacia 38 has the pairing of Maitino, where a young woman falls for her art teacher in the 1910s of Madrid. It's pretty dramatic, but it ends well. Link in the description. Wild Nights with Emily is a comedy film about Emily Dickinson and her affair with her sister-in-law Sue. Gypsy is the Netflix one-season and cancelled series where Naomi Watts plays a therapist who develops an infatuation for her client's ex-girlfriend. Reaching for the Moon is based on the true story of the love affair between American poet Elizabeth Bishop and Brazilian architect Lota de Machado Soares. It's not a happy ending. CW's Legends of Tomorrow is, however, with Sarah and Ava meeting, falling in love, and co-captaining a time ship along with their band of misfits. Desert Hearts is the first lesbian film with a happy ending and follows a divorcee who meets and falls for a young woman. And The Favourite, based on real-life Queen Anne, her closest friend and lover Lady Sarah, and the interloper Abigail, who tries to seduce Queen Anne away from Lady Sarah. Let's start with It's in the Water, a 1997 satire about how gay is catching because it's in the water. It follows a yet-to-be-realised lesbian and a former gay man who both go on their journey to discover who they really are, while the rest of their conservative Bible Belt town freak out about it. Alex reconnects with a high school friend, Grace, and discovers that this friend's marriage broke down because of a lesbian love affair, and this sends her down something of a rabbit hole, while a man named Mark meets a man at an ex-gay ministry and falls for him. I have seen this, but it was quite some time ago and I don't remember much other than the film was passable, and that it has a mature sapphic couple in there. Raven's Touch is a film you are probably more familiar with if you have seen other films by Soul Kiss Films like Elena Undone, which I'll touch on later in this video. This one I haven't seen, mostly because the trailer just didn't convince me it was any good and the reviews aren't great. It's about a woman, Raven, who blames herself for a tragic accident. In an attempt to deal with her grief, she moves out to her family cabin. As she tries to deal with the grief, she meets Kate, who is camping with her kids, and from there a connection develops. You'll possibly recognise both leads, Thunderbird Dinwiddie, who was in Elena Undone, and Drea Weber, who was also in our next film, The Gymnast. This film is about a woman called Jane whose career as a gymnast was dashed by an injury and since has been in a loveless marriage and surviving in a job she doesn't like. When she meets Serena, a closeted lesbian, she is given the opportunity to audition for a Las Vegas show, and as the two women work together, an electrifying connection develops between them. I've heard good things about this film, that it has convincing chemistry, good acting, and certainly the acrobatic elements is out of the ordinary. It also had a follow-up movie in 2020 called The Aerialist from the same writer-director Ned Farr, which has more tepid reviews. But if you enjoyed The Gymnast, you may wish to check in on Jane some 14 years later and see how she is doing, along with some, I am to understand, impressive aerial gymnastics. Ned Farr and Drea Weber also collaborated on another film called A Marine Story in 2010 about ex-Marine Alexandra, who was discharged from service for misconduct. And let me just spoil the misconduct for you because it's the reason why this movie is on this list. She had relations with a woman. Upon returning to her conservative hometown following a tour in Iraq, she is charged with helping prepare a young woman for boot camp who must either face jail time or enlist in the military. It's not an age gap love story, but does have a mature sapphic lady in the lead role, and I don't remember disliking the film. Hannah Free is the story of a lifelong relationship between two childhood friends, Hannah and Rachel. With a world that wouldn't accept Hannah's more mask appearance, she found herself through the years leaving their hometown, but always coming back because that's where Rachel was. The movie moves back and forth in time, revealing their passionate relationship in spite of all the obstacles that existed to keep them apart. I've seen this one, but it has been so long I couldn't say much about it. I didn't dislike it, but I guess the fact I don't remember must indicate it doesn't stand out in any particular way either. Those of you who have seen it, what did you all think? Huit Femmes, also known as Eight Women in English, is a French 2002 film where 8 women are suspects when a man is killed in a remote mansion in the 1950s. All of them have a motive and a secret, and since I haven't seen it, I'm guessing one of the secrets is that one of these ladies is sapphic. It's a musical murder mystery which sounds like a laugh. From my peruse of the internet, this seems to be a well-loved film full of camp and pizzazz, and at least one mature sapphic lady in it. Perry Mason is a TV series that lasted 2 seasons about a defense attorney in 1930s LA. Della is a colleague and she is also a sapphic who begins a romance with Anita in season 2. But the times being what they are, it has to be kept hidden, especially as she is in the middle of a high-profile court case. I saw a few clips of this pairing and I've linked it in the description, and I have to say there is a lovely witty repartee going on between the ladies that I found very watchable. If their storyline is anything to judge by, the whole show might be worth a watch. Die Konkurrentin is a 1997 made-for-TV movie about a woman, Katharina, who has a new work assistant, Marin, who was placed there to destroy her career. Plot twist. Instead, they fall in love. Reviews suggest it's a relatively unsurprising, predictable film, but nonetheless solid and features 2 mature sapphic ladies in there. There is a very low-quality version of the film with subtitles hanging around on YouTube that I have linked, and if you can understand German, I have linked a better playlist too. Keeping it German, Hotel Mondial is a German TV show where a new boss, Eva, has arrived to manage the hotel, causing disruption to the staff. Uli, who takes great pride in her food, finds herself butting heads with Eva multiple times, but perhaps lurking underneath the antagonism is an attraction when a confrontation results in an unexpected kiss. I have linked to a playlist for the pair. It doesn't have subs, however, you can put on the auto-generated ones and then auto-translate that into English. It's not the best viewing experience, but it's good enough so that you'll be able to follow the story. Let me mention a few other films and TV shows with mature women in them that I've already covered in other videos briefly. If you're wanting some German soaps to keep you entertained, Carla was a long-running character for the show Verboten Liebe that had multiple relationships with women, starting with Hannah, which didn't end well, Suzanne, and finally Stella. I have a full playlist for her in the description. Gute Zeiten, Schlechte Zeiten has a sapphic lady Annie who has various romances, a couple of which were with older women, Catherine and Rosa. La Religieuse, which I heard is a good film, but because of the nature of the lesbian element, I'll only mention briefly. It's about a young woman who is abandoned by her family at a convent, and she goes on to suffer much abuse and humiliation. When she is transferred to another convent, the Mother Superior takes an inappropriate interest in her, and from what I could tell, the sapphic element is not reciprocal and includes a worrying power dynamic, so just a brief mention of it here. Disobedience, which looks at 2 childhood friends who reconnect and rekindle their romance when Ronit comes back home for her father's funeral. Em Familia, a Brazilian telenovela, which features the love story between Clara, a housewife, and the young successful photographer Marina. Elena Undone is based on a true story of a pastor's wife who falls for a writer when their paths cross a couple of times and they can't keep away from each other. In Dead Ringers, we have the Mantle twins, one of whom, or both of whom, are sapphic ladies trying to make birthing a better experience for mothers in this delightfully twisted tale. Dead to Me, where 2 women find themselves bonding over the death of a husband, only one of them is hiding a secret about this death. She also happens to be a sapphic, and we get to see her having a wee fling in season 2. Fire is a film from the mid-90s which remains one of my all-time favourites about 2 wives married to brothers who find in each other a profound love. Kevin Can F*** Himself is a satire about the sitcom wife Alison who becomes fast friends with her next-door neighbour as her life unravels. This neighbour, Patty, is a sapphic, definitely sporting an unspoken crush for Alison, but also starts a relationship with a cop who is investigating illegal activity that could lead back to both of them. Mädchen in Uniform, the first sapphic film ever in 1931, is about a young girl at boarding school who develops a crush on her teacher. There is also a 1958 version, which is my personal fave. Olivia is set in boarding school where a young girl develops a crush on her teacher who has a sapphic-coded rivalry with a fellow teacher. If you're enjoying this series, be sure to be subscribed since 90% of you are not, and I would love to hit that 50k this year. Starting out with the film Between Two Women, set in the 1950s Yorkshire where Ellen, unhappy in her marriage, meets her son's teacher, Kathy. A friendship that borders on more develops, but given the times, the prospect of an affair is unthinkable. It's a quiet and simple film that delves into the emotional journey to discovering an attraction for another woman. The movie, however, doesn't have a happy ending, not even a kiss, so even though I thought the film had its merits, I wasn't totally won over. Moonlit Winter also doesn't have the kind of ending that I wanted for the sapphic characters, but this South Korean film was so beautifully atmospheric with some moments of delight, so I find I forgive it more easily. This movie focuses in on the relationship of a mother, Yoon-hee, who holds a deep sadness, and a bright daughter, Se-bum. Despite wanting to, Se-bum can't seem to connect with her mother. When she accidentally intercepts a letter from her mother's first love, she begins to understand her mother more when she discovers that her mother had been in love with another woman in her youth. Hoping to bridge the divide, she arranges for them to travel to Japan where this flame lives in hopes of reconnecting the two women. The cinematography alone makes this a beautiful watch, quite beyond the touching storyline, so I do recommend. For 80 Days is a 2010 Spanish film that is apparently spoken in Basque, the last surviving Paleo-European language spoken indigenously in Europe by about 1 million people in the Pyrenees area, both in Spain and France. The things you learn, so cool. The movie is about two women in their 70s who reconnect after about 50 years, and they rekindle their friendship only to find that the attraction of their youths is still there. While one of them is living as an out lesbian, the other is married to a man, and it forces her to face what she did not in her youth. I haven't seen it, but from the trailer I'm intrigued, and if I can get my hands on a copy, I will surely check it out. Bobby's Girl is about Belly and Roberta, a middle-aged lesbian couple whose life in an idyllic Irish town is turned upside down when Roberta's 10-year-old nephew comes to stay with them when he is orphaned, and Roberta discovers that she has a lump in her breast. I'm to understand it's a sweet, sentimental, feel-good film, and there is a copy of the film to be had on YouTube, so I have linked it in the description. The Bostonians is a 1984 movie that looks at suffragette Olive and a conservative southern lawyer who both seek to win the heart of a young woman, Verena. A passionate friendship develops between Olive and Verena, but given the year that this was made, I would guess it's not a happy ending for us sapphics. It stars Vanessa Redgrave as the mature sapphic lady, who has also played sapphic in If These Walls Could Talk Too, but beyond that, I'm not sure if it's worth checking out. Let me know in the comments. Kufia is a 2023 film following Krishna, a spy who is tasked with tracking down a mole selling Indian defense secrets. The lesbian element, I am to understand, doesn't get a lot of screen time, although it is not inconsequential to the plot. During this job, Krishna is reminded of a previous job where she and a woman called Hina worked together, and this leads her to seek Hina out, and things turn sapphic. I don't know that it's a movie you would watch just for the lady-loving lady elements, but it does have a mature sapphic lady as the protagonist. Finn's Girl is a movie about Finn, who must raise her stepdaughter alone after the death of her partner, while also dealing with death threats for working at an abortion clinic. From the sounds of it, this film focuses in on the relationship between a parent and child, and of course the politically hot issue of women's reproductive rights too, which, unfortunately, doesn't seem to have improved since the film was made in 2007. Not sure how much the sapphic element plays into it, but the lead is a mature sapphic lady. La Nave del Olvido, also known as Forgotten Roads, is a Chilean film about a recently widowed woman who moves in with her daughter in a small religious-minded village and strikes up a friendship with the woman next door which turns to love, only that doesn't go over well with the village. Watching the trailer got me all excited because it looks like it's a beautiful film, so I will definitely be checking this one out when I can get my hands on a copy. Hopefully it's as good as it looks. Same goes for Las Herederas, known as the heiress in English, about Chela and Chiquita, a couple who have been together for 30 years and are descended from wealthy families. When they find themselves in a financial crisis, they begin to sell their family heirlooms off, and Chela starts a taxi service for some wealthy clients. This leads her to meeting Angie, a young woman who reinvigorates Chela's world. This looks like a quiet, thoughtful film that centers around a deep character study, and I've never seen a film from Paraguay before, so colour me interested on all fronts. Now, let me briefly cover the following, as I have talked about more of them before on other videos. Boys on the Side, where Whoopi Goldberg plays a lesbian who falls for her best friend. The friend falls ill, and well. But it's a film I really quite enjoy all the same. A Question of Love, which looks at the legal battle over custody for children when a woman moves in with her female lover in the 1970s. I care a lot about a scoundrel of a woman who is involved with dodgy dealings, but she has a tender relationship with her girlfriend, so I forgive her. I don't forgive that ending, though. One Night, about three friends who are forced to confront what happened to one of them one night as teenagers. It's a pretty heavy show. Better Than Chocolate, which features a love story between two mature sapphic ladies, Judy and Frances, alongside the main sapphic storyline. I was shipping Judy with the mum of one of the other lesbians, though, won't lie. Amy and Jaguar, about two women, one of whom is a Jew, find each other in Germany during World War II. Janet King, a TV series following Janet, a senior prosecutor, and the cases she gets caught up in, and she is also a sapphic lady. The Guitar, about a woman who loses her job, her boyfriend, and gets a terminal cancer diagnosis and decides to do what she always wanted to, take up the guitar. She also seems open to some sapphic lady loving. Not sure how much that features into the story, hence this brief mention. La Casa de las Flores, a telenovela spoof that features a storyline between Maria Jose, a transgendered woman who rekindles a romance with her ex-wife after transitioning. Madre Solo e Dos, a TV series where two women have their babies switched at birth and as a consequence grow close. Leanne, a movie about a married woman who falls for a woman and the impact that this has on her life. The series is by no means exhaustive, so feel free to keep adding more that you know about, but all in all, we've covered 96. That's quite a bit. Before we go any further, I wanted to make a correction on last week's video. I said that Between Two Women had an unhappy ending because I had such a distinct memory of being disappointed by its end, and I seem to remember the two women walking away from each other after saying they couldn't be together, but it seems I misremembered the entire ending. I went to rewatch it on Tubi, and it turns out they walked off together, and it's implied they get together, although we don't see it, and I'm guessing that is why I was disappointed, because I'll be honest, I was kind of disappointed this time around too, that we barely got a glimmer of physical affection between them. I watched it about 15 years ago, right around the time where there was a fandom discourse on how sapphic ladies were not being allowed to show affection on screen, and I think I was a little bit fed up with that. So, I must have conflated the ending. Thanks for those of you who let me know in the comments. On with the list. Let's start with Losing Chase, a 1996 made-for-TV movie where the great Dame Helen Mirren plays a woman, Chase, who has a mental breakdown. To help her convalesce, Elizabeth is brought to Martha's Vineyard, and while there is resistance to the help at first, making their relationship contentious, Elizabeth quickly becomes indispensable to Chase and feelings start to develop. From what I've gathered, they don't get a happy ending together. The story is more about Chase extricating herself out of a stifling, if wealthy life full of fake people. Of course, with Dame Helen Mirren at the helm, it's a movie I'm curious to see, and it so happens that I found a copy of the movie up on YouTube, so I've linked that in the description. A mi madre le gustan las mujeres is a 2002 Spanish movie about a classical pianist who introduces her three daughters to her younger lover, a woman. This goes down like a ton of bricks, and unable to accept that their heretofore straight mother is now coming out as a lesbian, they try to break up their mother's relationship in what seems to be a rather unconventional way. It seems they try to seduce the lover. It looks like a bit of a comedic romp, one you can check out because, like Losing Chase, the full movie is up on YouTube for you to peruse at your leisure. I have put a link in the description. Dólares de Arena, also known as Sand Dollars, is a 2014 movie about an older European woman, Anne, who takes as her lover a young Dominican woman, Noelle, who is struggling to make ends meet. While for Anne the feelings are real, for Noelle it is a matter of survival, a way for her to make money, illuminating themes of class, inequality and exploitation. It appears to be a meditative kind of film with the Dominican Republic as a lush background in this quiet drama. So My Grandmother's a Lesbian is about a granddaughter, Eva, who comes to visit her grandmother only to find out she's in love with another woman, and what's more, they want to get married. This throws a spanner in her engagement to a conservative man in a conservative family. I started watching this movie years ago but stopped because I got bored. It was more about the granddaughter than the sapphic ladies, and her story was pretty predictable. She was clearly going to leave her engagement for the guy she meets in the movie who happens to be her grandmother's girlfriend's grandson. But hey, you may really enjoy the film. Majama is a movie about a devoted mother and wife, Pallavi, who has a rumour surface just as her son is getting engaged to threaten that union. That rumour? That she might have a thing for the ladies. While things seem to be falling apart around her, it makes her confront feelings she had set aside long ago as a teenager and to accept who she is. The fact that the fabulous Madhuri Dixit is playing the queer lead makes me feel all kinds of ways because, for those of you who don't know who she is one of the top-tier A-list Bollywood stars from the 80s and 90s, the it girl, revered not just for her acting but especially for her dancing. Basically, she is Bollywood royalty, and to have someone like her playing queer is huge. It's massive and I love it. Playing her childhood best friend is Simone Singh, who you may have seen in Four More Shots Please, which I talked about before because of the bisexual character Umang, but she's been working steadily in Bollywood for a long time. The film does focus a fair amount on the fallout of the rumour and less on the reconnection of the two women, so while we get flashbacks to what happened in their youths, the focus is more on Pallavi facing her sexuality and how her family and community deal with it. A recent TV show is Mary and George, where we find Julianne Moore once again gaying it up for us. She's made it onto this list a fair few times so far, and here she is again, this time playing a Countess of Buckingham who has moulded her son George to seduce King James I and become his lover. While she plots her way to power and money by any means necessary, she finds herself seeking the company of a prostitute who also has big ambitions. The story is based in fact, although I imagine it's not entirely historically accurate. Looks like an intriguing series. Another entry for 2024 is the German comedy What a Feeling, about a woman whose marriage ends after 20 years, and in her attempt to deal with it, she winds up at a lesbian bar where she meets a charming woman. When their paths cross again by chance, a romance begins, one that opens up a whole new world to her. It looks like a fun and light-hearted, heartwarming kind of film, and given how many of the entries on the series I've had to give wee warnings about, I suspect this will be a balm to the spirit. Also, I can't remember the last time I saw a comedy from Germany, so on the list it goes. It came out in German theatres around Easter. Hopefully it will get an online release soon. Sueños de Libertad is a Spanish telenovela that looks at the events that led to a man shooting his wife in 1958. On the show is a woman called Marta who owns a shop, and working in that shop is a young woman called Fina, and as they work together, they catch feelings. They begin a secret love affair, but given the time and how very illegal gay activity is, it's not exactly safe. I'm sure there are a lot more nuances to the story, but from the few clips I've watched, that's what I got. The pairing seems to have garnered some fans, so I'm sure you can find some edits of their stories on YouTube if you go searching. Entre Vías, also known as Wrong Side of the Track in English, is a Spanish series where a war veteran takes matters into his own hands when his granddaughter falls victim to drug dealers taking over his neighborhood. While both sapphic characters are part of Season 1, in Season 2 Amanda and Jimena cross paths when Jimena, a closeted gay who has chosen to ignore that part of herself and stay squarely in the closet, is going through a divorce. She finds herself coming across Amanda, the chief of police, when she is brought in for drunken and disorderly behavior. It leads to romance, but falters as Jimena struggles to accept her sexuality. The next one looks like a bit of fun. Elas por Elas, a Brazilian telenovela about a woman, Natalia, whose twin brother disappeared when she was a teenager under mysterious circumstances, and she's never been able to let it go, which has led to mental health breakdowns. Now, decades later, she is convinced that someone murdered him, and she's determined to find out who. One of her primary suspects is Carol, her brother's ex-girlfriend, and as a result of her investigation, she comes into contact with Carol quite a few times, and they grow close, leading to feelings. There is no doubt many more plot lines in the show, but that's what I could gather about the gay thread. It looks like it's a blend of mystery, drama, and comedy, and if anyone knows where this can be accessed or knows of an edit of Natalia and Carol, let me know in the comments. Die Liebwächterin is a movie about a politician, Mona, who investigates the tobacco industry. She is assigned a bodyguard, Johanna, to protect her, but this job puts Johanna's son in danger. While this German made-for-TV film is a crime thriller, it also appears to have a love story between Moana and Johanna, and the entire film has been uploaded to YouTube, albeit in very low quality and without subtitles, so this is for those who understand German only. I have linked it in the description. When I found out that Al McPherson played gay, I have to admit I was intrigued. A Girl Thing is a 2001 miniseries that looks at a therapist who is dealing with 4 different stories from 4 of her patients. One of the stories is gay. When Lauren goes on a double-blind date, she finds herself more interested in the other woman, Casey, than either of the men. It's also mutual. Despite pushback from Lauren's friend, she decides to do something she never does, take a chance. The story is up online in low quality. I've linked it for you in the description, but just a warning, the ending is disappointing. Under the Bridge is a new Hulu show set in Victoria, BC in Canada that looks at the investigation into a 14-year-old girl who went to a party and never came home. Cam is the lead investigator on this when a woman from her past shows up wanting to write a book. And from what I can tell, the past they shared was romantic and that romance is rekindled. Lily Gladstone is in the lead role, which just sign me up, I'm there. She's not only part native, which is so rare to see, but she's also a sapphic, and her career has been taking off something fierce with her role in Killers of the Flower Moon. You may recognise her from when she played Kristen Stewart's love interest in Certain Woman some years ago. In addition, if you enjoyed The Good Wife and loved Kalinda, you'll be as delighted as I am to see that Archie Punjabi has a role on the show. This totally makes it another for my list. It's currently up to episode 5 of 8, so this one is hot off the press. A show that has just finished airing, which is also a crime drama with a native lead, is High Country, set in the Victorian High Country of Australia, where Andrea Whitford is transferred to take over from the retiring sergeant with her wife and kid. She is immediately busy investigating a number of missing people in the area, while her wife finally begins to paint again, forcing her to revisit the tragedy that led her to stopping. With both women so busy, it puts a strain on their relationship. Leah Purcell, who you may recognise from other Australian sapphic shows like Wentworth and Janet King, is in the lead as a part Aboriginal sergeant, and her wife is played by a fave of mine, New Zealander and sapphic Sarah Wiseman. I must go and catch up on the last couple of episodes. Let me cover the next few briefly. The Secret Diaries of Miss Anne Lister is a film that looks at Anne Lister's life and her search for a wife. It covers a different period of time to the show Gentleman Jack. Queens was a one-season and cancelled series that follows 4 women who were in a band together in their youths and decided to reunite. One of them, Jill, is a closeted lesbian deep in the church. The Fosters, a series that follows 2 kids fostered by a lesbian couple and their adopted and biological children. The Wheel of Time, an adaptation of a book where Moiraine Damodred, on a quest to find the Dragon Reborn, has a secret, a forbidden love with the most powerful woman in the Aes Sedai order of women who can channel the One Power. Star Trek Picard, where 7 of 9, who you may remember from Star Trek Voyager, is now older, jaded, and it turns out bisexual. She has a small love story with Raffi. Le Jupon Rouge, also known as Manuela's Loves, is the 1987 story of 3 women of different ages and backgrounds who are caught up in a love story. Reviews seem tepid and I couldn't find much else about the movie. Bloomington, the beloved teacher and student forbidden love film. When an ex-child star arrives at a school, a romance with her teacher soon develops. Loving Annabelle, the other beloved teacher and student forbidden love story. A rebellious teen who arrives at a boarding school starts a romance with her teacher. Bessie, the renowned blues singer who had a relationship with men and women. The sapphic part is brief. Away, about a group of astronauts heading on the first manned mission to Mars. Lou may have left behind a husband and child, but during the preparation for her journey, she found herself falling in love with a woman. And finally, Mrs. Dalloway, a 1997 movie of the Virginia Woolf novel. I get the feeling this one is more about sapphic undercurrents between Clarissa Dalloway and her friend from her youth, Sally, than any overt sapphic activity, which would be unsurprising given the novel was written in 1925 when homosexuality was illegal and seen as a mental illness. I could be wrong, but hence its brief mention. I do have a link for the movie in the description, so be sure to check it out. That's it for the series. If there are other videos that you would like to see, let me know in the comments. And until next time, lady lovers.